20 Pittsburgh citizens are killed. Many more are wounded. The enraged crowd chases the Philadelphia militia into the railroad roundhouse. Railroad property is torched, and firemen try to save burning railroad buildings. Their hoses are cut.
So my damn binoculars! Let it burn!
The battle continues throughout the night. Members of the crowd set fire to freight cars and push them down the tracks toward the roundhouse. The Philadelphia troops flee the burning building. More Pittsburgh residents and 5 Philadelphia soldiers are killed before the militia can escape.
I am Colonel D.L. Smith, alderman for the city of Allegheny. Yes, I was there that Saturday afternoon in July. Thousands of people were gathered around the Pennsylvania Railroad workshops, and most of them weren't strikers. Their purpose for being there was not to violate any law. No, they either sympathized with the strikers or they were curious to witness the arrival of the Philadelphia militia. At least one half were women and children. Without warning, they were fired upon, and many killed or wounded. This caused universal indignation and was the reason for all the subsequent destruction.
With the routing of the Philadelphia militia, working people from all over the Pittsburgh region converge on the railroad yards. They loot the smoldering freight cars.
My father hasn't worked in many months. And so on Monday he went to the rail yard where many people were helping themselves to such things as wine, hams, and barrels of flour. Father, he tried to roll a barrel of flour up the hill, but he lost his hold and rolled down with the barrel, and he lay there unconscious till daylight. He was still dazed when he reached home Sunday morning.
The fire spreads for 3 miles. Over 40 Pennsylvania Railroad buildings, 100 locomotives, and 2,000 freight cars are destroyed. The actions of the Pennsylvania Railroad and the Philadelphia militia were only the immediate cause of the destruction. Americans have not benefited equally from the country's economic growth. The nation was mired in the 4th year of a severe economic depression. Millions had lost their jobs. Those still working suffered wage cuts of as much as 50%. In some cities, 1 out of 3 workers was unemployed.
How do I live? I don't. My family gets meat once a week, and the rest of the time there is nothing but dry bread and coffee, black coffee. This is staring us in the face. It is cruel to be compelled to starve in this plentiful world.
Many deplored the depression's misery, but there was little agreement on remedies. Calls for public relief and work programs fell on deaf ears. An influential magazine editorialized,
"Free soup must be prohibited, and all classes must learn that soup of any kind, beef or turtle, can be had only by being paid for. Simply because one's stomach is empty is no reason to rail at the rich.
Thousands of unemployed workers wandered about the country.
"12 months ago, I started from Philadelphia in search of work. I was a mechanic, and a competent one at that. During this year, I've crossed 17 states and obtained only 6 weeks' work. Last winter, I slept in the woods. There have been 2 or 3 days without food. When in God's name I asked for something to keep body and soul together, I've been repulsed as a tramp and a vagabond."
With so many desperate people wandering about, the nation's press voiced fears of the tramp menace.
Dimes and dollars, dollars and dimes, an empty pocket, the worst of crimes. If a man is down, give him a thrust. Trample the beggar into the dust. Presumptuous poverty's quite appalling. Knock him over, kick him for falling.
The greatest victim of the Depression, the unemployed worker, was seen as its very cause. The employed worker did not have an easy time either. Many went out on strike to restore wage cuts, but most work stoppages failed. Businessmen were able to replace strikers with the unemployed. The railroads and other companies also used repressive tactics to break unions. The young labor movement was all but destroyed. Nevertheless, as news of Pittsburgh spreads, working-class communities across the country react.
It was everywhere. It was nowhere. It was as if some central volcano had belched forth burning rivers in every direction.
Protests surged along the railroad lines, rapidly building into a nationwide strike wave. The Great Uprising entered its second week. Cumberland, Maryland. Railroad strikers are joined by canal boatmen. Holmesville, New York. Strikers slope down the tracks, immobilizing trains. Scranton, Pennsylvania. Striking coal and iron workers are attacked by police and businessmen. A San Francisco strike meeting degenerates into an anti-Chinese riot. And in Louisville, Kentucky, black and white workers march together, demanding a wage increase. New York City. 20,000 citizens gather in support of the strike. Departing protesters are attacked by the police. Reading, Pennsylvania. 11 strikers are killed. St. Louis. The railroad stoppage escalates into a general strike. White and black workers shut down the city for 5 days. Pittsburgh. Iron and steel workers, miners, and laborers join railroad strikers. Middle-class residents and workers form a citizens' patrol to restore calm to the city's streets. Meanwhile, the trainmen's union runs the railroad, directing the movement of passenger and mail trains. They refuse, however, to operate freight trains. Despite the work stoppages and the destruction of his train yards, Pennsylvania Railroad President Tom Scott still refuses to negotiate. With the strike intensifying, cities and towns report food shortages. President Rutherford B. decides to break the strike with federal troops. Troops he had removed a month earlier from the South, where they had been protecting the rights of recently freed slaves. Chicago. One day after the Pittsburgh rail yards are burned, the Workingmen's Party, the nation's first socialist party, calls a mass demonstration to support the strikers.